All right. Hello, everybody. It is January 30th, 2026. We are almost to February. My name is Morgenrede. This is Media Agnostic Doom Journaling, an open mic series that is every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. This is for the weirdos and the freaks and the extremes. These pieces that you'll hear tonight are not the pieces you want. These aren't pieces that are normal. These aren't pieces that you see every day. They are of a very interesting nature. I'm trying to do something new with my introductions here, but I invite the weirdos. I enjoy hearing from the fringes of independent literature, the poets that are not afraid to look away from the grotesques and the intricacies of the brutalities of real life. Anyways, starting off the night, sorry, I'm looking at uh, concepts of feet in our Zoom chat. That's hilarious. Starting off the night is a person who messaged me first, a person who I always love to hear, Rudy Johnson.
Yeah, what's up?
What's up, Rudy?
My mic sound like shit.
Oh no, it's getting better. It started off low, but I think you got up to a good volume.
Great, great, cool. Yeah, speaking of brutality, animality, I guess, fatality, I would say too. Anyway, I got a couple poems and I can link them too. These might be better.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. That's probably open. Anyway, I got a couple of those and I'll show you. You link me up for the video.
Oh yeah, let me so that you can share your screen.
Yeah, yes,
Let me
sir.
see. I know I remember how to do this last time. Let me see.
I think if you right click the like portrait or whatever, that would be like
Media.
share allow. Not sure though. I don't know what they're doing for facial.
Let's see. It's video. Oh my God. Let's see video settings. Wait, host tools. Maybe it's there. Aha. Allow participants to share
Oh,
screen. There we go. All right. You should be able to share your screen now, Rudy.
ooh, thank you. Well, first I'm gonna read some dumbass poetry. This one's called Ban. Yeah, ban in the chat. Yeah, the guy, etc. It's not that ban. um, yeah, independent of the dungeon with two classes, nihilist and tryhard. Both suck dick. Stop saying everyone's hopeless, nihilist. You right, tryhard. Evil Ebonlore betrayed her guild in Shadowbane, took the money out of the chest and left her tree withering. Wuthering Heights was a book about class. Never read it in class. I was supposed to. Supposing I was my elven blade weaver. I wish I were a girl again, half savage and hardy and free. I would do whatever to win. Stuart Buck won by taking the money out of the chest. This one's called Support Human Artists, but only from the side of the coffin, carried by you plus five who never read them, while Terminators march the low roads of validation and capture more hearts and minds. Don't actually don't support human artists. This next one's kind of lead into the video I might do here. Called Dungeon Generator. I work on an RPG dungeon generator between walls, floors. That is, between punching and mopping. It keeps me angry. It keeps me alive. And if you're alive, you're not dead. You're not under there making oil with lizards or lizards. So I don't want to hear any speculation about afterlife, except which MMORPG the Uber Guild Afterlife will raid dungeons on next. my weekends are geologic time. Now I'm gonna try to share my screen. Let's see here. Oh, let's see here. Oh, here it is. There's an share sound of video. All right. All right. Can y'all see that?
You can see it.
Cool. 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 Okay. All right. I'm gonna start playing a video. Let's see.
From the Dungeon Generator class, 2 methods. Please kill me for 20 experience points. Add to composite canvas, open parenthesis, screenshot canvas, close parenthesis, open curly brace try, open curly brace if, open parenthesis, exclamation point. This dot screenshot images, close parenthesis, open curly brace. This dot screenshot images equals open square bracket, close square bracket, semicolon, close curly brace, const count equals this dot screenshot count, semicolon, if, open parenthesis, count, triple equals 0, close parenthesis, open curly brace. This dot screenshot width equals screenshot canvas dot width, semicolon, this dot screenshot height equals screenshot canvas dot height, semicolon, const diameter equals math.seal, open parenthesis, this dot screenshot width times 8.2, close parenthesis, semicolon, this dot composite canvas dot width equals diameter, semicolon, this dot composite canvas dot height equals diameter, semicolon, this dot composite ctext dot fill style equals single quote, hashtag 0000000, single quote, semicolon, this dot composite ctx dot fill rect, open parenthesis, 0, 0, diameter, close parenthesis, semicolon, this dot center x equals diameter, slash, 1.62, semicolon, this dot center y equals diameter, slash, 3.6, semicolon, double slash equals.
That's it.
Holy shit. Designing is a masochism. So that's what it said in that last little clip in the background sketched on the wall.
Oops. Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's what it said. Yeah. I had my thinking. Yeah. I thoroughly believe that. Honestly. These are all basically about like creative frustration and stuff. Yeah.
It's about what?
Creative frustration stuff.
I was getting a hint of that, especially like that the last video piece where it just was this raw code and how you're trying to be creative with coding, but it's just so, I mean, it's almost like the all work and no play, you're just sitting staring at words and letters and variations of like rule sets and like again the semicolon, the open
Yeah.
brackets, the closed brackets, if when if what is it, if then statements, like it becomes like the
Yeah.
logic becomes so antithesis to creativity, but you need that logic to then reach creativity, but it provides this frustration, and the voice you used to like bring that poem to life was so fucking creepy. Holy shit.
Yeah. I just basically that's a transliteration of the actual code of the program there. So it's like I just took like a method or whatever out of the the class and just had it transliterate code and stuff.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that you used part of that program that you showed us last week as like an image to like as this like a code based created like random like RNG created image to then read the code poem.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it's very meta. It's like unbelievably meta.
I was going for like a I don't know. I get really in my head about like when I'm designing shit like whatever else. So it's just like I feel like coding like I can't imagine doing this without AI. I know it's some JavaScript and stuff like that, but to do all that basically knowing that nobody's gonna really give a shit about most of the stuff, right? And that nobody's really gonna use most things people create, and still take years and stuff to code something by hand.
Yeah,
Insane, right? Insane level of stuff. So yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, it's true, when in that first poem, the first line, independent art is a dungeon, where it's like you just spend all this time in a dark room with, the person who is being tortured or whatever, and that's your art, and you're just flaying it, trying to make it like you're trying to derive pleasure from like editing and shaping this thing, but I don't know, like no one's like I mean, ideally no one will see it or hear of it unless I mean you have to really put yourself out into the world. And so, publishing
yeah.
world can give you that sometimes, but it that dopamine wears off very quick and you really have
Oh
to
yeah.
you got to find your own ways to make it feel like your art is reaching other people, and it's not easy. It's not, like you have to be okay with your art taking up a moment and then
Yeah.
somebody else gets their share of the light, of the, like some other person's going to publish a book and it's going to be the big thing. I remember when I self-published a book, I was really excited. And then like Sam Pink published a book, like it was either that day or the next day, and I was like, well, shit. All right, yay, go Sam Pink, yeehaw. They're a much more established writer, and but it is what it is. Like you just have to
Oh yeah.
you enjoy uh, your
Yeah.
little 5 minutes of appreciation, even if you spent, an aching number of hours trying to make something cool and it just gets kind of, put on a bookshelf and forgotten for however long.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the you're right. Like I think the little glimmers and stuff during the actual creation of it too. Like Kat is mentioning the sausage being made. For me, it's always like basically like blood sausage getting like pounded and put in the meat grinder basically and grindy, and then yeah, like maybe it's eaten like, or maybe it just rots in the refrigerator, but still like watching it grind through the the metal or whatever and watching it do its thing, like, well, that gives you something, I guess.
That
Speaking
is,
of how the sausage is made, how
see, when I saw that message in the chat from Kat, I was like, is that Jan? Because that's something Jan would totally say. Like, yeah, poetry is all just a fucking sausage grinder. That's an
yeah.
interesting comparison because, yeah, something that you love just gets beaten down and then shoved through a grinder into this neat little wiener shape. And
Yeah.
Well, I said that because like I feel like the way that people use how the sausage is made is like it's a process that people don't want to see. Like
Yeah.
the whole metaphor or whatever is largely that it's like, you just want to like eat it when it's put on your plate. You don't want to see them like stuffing goop into like an intestine or whatever, even though that is like a core part of the process. And like this is all about like enjoying the process and putting a magnifying glass on the process that's like ugly and stupid and painful and demoralizing because like that's how it is. So I don't know. That's why I said
Oh
it.
yeah. No. No, I totally agree. Like, I mean, like that's literally what that Dungeon Terminator fucking thing is. And yeah, like basically the process, like for me, is rarely enjoyable through the whole thing. Um, and like I know for a lot of people that's probably the case. Like it's rarely anything that's enjoyable all the way. And in this case, like you mentioned, like put the sausage on the plate, like a lot of times, like when you do that, like either there's no plate or there's no one to eat it. So, in a lot of cases, in independent creativity, I guess there's either like the plate's broken or the plate's like got bugs on it, or, or it'll be just the bugs eating it, maybe. But
Damn.
yeah, that's kind of the yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's an insight into yeah creative stuff, I guess. Yeah, thanks for letting me read it.
Of course, no, thank you, Rudy. I always appreciate having that existential reminder that creating things is always an arduous and sometimes self deprecating process. You know, it's like we're all the owner and the dog in a dog show, and sometimes we get a nice, pat on the ass and a treat at the end, and sometimes we're just kind of embarrassing our parents and we're just acting like retards online. And hey, it is what it is, like, and I would want to be more retarded anywhere else than right here in the media agnostic doom journaling open mic, baby. uh Fuck yeah. Thank you, Rudy. I hope that just know that I'm staring at your book on my bookshelf along with Kat's book and
Oh
some other
yeah,
folks in the indie lit scene. So I love your
nice.
work.
I have much love for you.
Love it. All right. So great introduction to the Knights. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next reader. Let me scroll back up to find the list. All right. Our next reader is going to be Peter.
Hello. Okay. All right. all right. All right. One of my favorite things in media is when kids cover up the death of other children, like happened in high winds of Jamaica when a kid fell off the cliff and then they forgot about it until they were reunited with their parents. They were kidnapped by pirates. That was the premise. And it's easy to forget. Yes, it's easy to forget. They tend to forget and tend to forget. Tend to react. They tend to react like happened in Gorman when they tied a branch to a stick and jumped over a deep pit. And one of them fell and died. And they covered it up and got away with it. And they tend to forget so fast. Yes, they tend to forget so fast. No, they intend to react. Yes, tend to react. And they bounce back. All right, that's it.
Amazing. The only person brave enough in the open mics to serenade us with the not just the spoken word, but the
Uh,
vocal word. Okay, so this was about kids dying in Hawaii.
yeah, well, it's about my one of my favorite themes in media, which is when kids cover up the death of other children, like
Oh
happened in
shit.
Island, Jamaica, where the kids were kidnapped by pirates, and then one of them fell off a cliff, and then the other ones just kind of forgot about it until they were reunited with their parents. And the parents were like, "Where's Jimmy?" And the other kids were like, "Oh yeah, he fell off a cliff. We forgot about it." And then also, I think it's kind of like it too. Basically, there's a whole lot of children's stories and like kind of like stories about children that are for like teens and young adults, where like a child will die, right? And then if it's like a modern story, typically then like that this fact gets eventually reported to the parents. But sometimes if it's like a cool enough like story from maybe a different time in history, the kids will just like cover up the death of this kid. Like they won't report it to their parents, like because they don't want them to know about the trouble that they're getting in. And
Yeah.
like that is like a very good trope because it's like we're just gonna agree not to talk about this. Um, and it's dramatic, but the kids tend to forget. And move on relatively easily. And I also like this concept of children as being kind of like ants, or like, like basically just like small people, like they're running their own little society. And like if they handle death, if they get the opportunity to handle a death of their own in their own way, and just kind of like move on, like that was just a small person that died, we're just going to ignore that, and or we're just going to process that internally and like handle it on our own terms. That's like a really cool idea.
It definitely reminds me of like Lord of the
Yeah,
Flies.
Lord of Flies. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
which is
Like,
crazy that they're making a new movie, or I guess another version movie of that story. But yeah, it's like when kids are left to their own devices, like there is this like fear and shame of like, oh my God, don't tell mom.
don't tell mom, but also like maybe we can make this work on our own terms, but we could just, it's like a dream upon waking. Like in the end of Lord of the Flies, they get discovered, and like their whole squabble, their little tribal squabble, evaporates,
Yeah,
right?
it just disappears. Like now,
Except one, there has been a death. Piggy, poor
Piggy died.
Piggy,
Or Piggy.
died, right? So there's this sort of element of something permanent, but it's also like, well, yeah, like, that was part of the story that just evaporated. Like, yeah, like we're not going to really deal with that, are we? Like, I don't know.
Right? Like how would the authority deal with that?
Yeah. How would the authority deal with that? The kids are just, and if the kids are cool, they're going to cover it up and be like, we don't know what happened. That's what I'm saying. It's like that's the coolest version of that story, is when the
Like,
kids just say,
wait, a
they
kid
just try
named
to forget.
Piggy? Like he was never here. Like
Yeah, it was like, yeah, like, and they just keep it to themselves, and then they can forget it. Maybe, I don't know.
it's like the definition of childhood. I wouldn't say childhood trauma, but like there's definitely things in your childhood where
Yeah,
that happened and you like weren't necessarily truthful about how you told your parents or authority figures about.
yeah, exactly. It's like that. I don't think I haven't encountered, I haven't had an experience like that maybe until my young adulthood, or maybe late teenage years. I guess for us American children, we have more of that kind of thing happen when we're like teenagers, right? Maybe not deaths, but whatever happens, then you just sort of cover it up.
Yeah.
Uh, when we don't talk about that last summer, you know,
Yeah.
and there was a movie about that called "I Know What You Did Last Summer." Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
Yeah, I think in America uniquely is the idea of shame, and I guess in the
uh,
South, there's a lot of like hidden shame that goes into. I mean, of course, there's like as kids we do weird sex stuff, or like we're like, oh, let's
mhm.
get naked at the slumber party and measure our dicks, and then like we just don't talk about it when we get older, like
Right. But you're talking about it, and you do, and like Mark said, I'd speak for yourself. We do talk about it, but
through our writing, I suppose we kind of hint at those moments, and it's
Mark said I hit bodies.
say what?
Mark said I hit bodies. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I mean, hey, we all hide bodies. I hope.
Yeah,
At least I hope everyone's as weird and fucked up as I am, or else it's gonna be real awkward.
and I'd like to emphasize, though, the point of my poem is that it's cooler when kids commit to it, because then they have a chance to completely like forget and just act like it never happened, and just like processing things as kids. I think is a cool concept where you
It
just
is,
sort of like
you know,
can digest it.
because as an adult, I guess the consciousness or your subconscious weighs a lot more on you than when you're a kid. It's like I remember it was like way easy to lie, and I like
That's
when I
you.
found that out, I was like, oh no, like I probably shouldn't do this. And then as I got older, maybe I guess that kind of moral compass is just more and like eroding. Like I don't know, it's so easy for me to just white lie now because I would easily lie as a kid. And like whatever, as long as it's not like super hurtful, you know. But like that's such an interesting idea about like yeah, kids. Like it reminds me of the movie Kids.
Oh yeah, Kids, the movie.
Oh,
Quite sad. Good movie.
it's a good movie, but god damn, yeah, you're like I hope that never. I mean, that is just like yeah, you really hope that you don't. I mean, Well, I guess thank God that I wasn't like with a group of people where one guy secretly had like fucking AIDS and was like giving people AIDS.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone in the chat was having sex like that as a teen. I know that some people were. I dated a woman named Emily, who was talking about the hookup she was having as a teenager via online soy visses. Um, but uh, you know what else is a good movie? Super Bad. That's a little bit closer to my experience, but they both, because they're a little bit older, just as foul mouthed, and just trying to have a little bit of sex instead of having way too much sex. That was my experience growing up. Was just like thinking, just trying to get a little bit of, just get a little sex,
Little sex. It's
just a
all,
little bit.
all an artist really
Just a
needs.
little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Was that a 50 Cent reference? All I need is a little bit.
Just unbuckle your pants just a little bit.
A little bit.
When I was growing up, we were having all the sex like they were having in that movie Kids. We were just trying to get a little bit of sex. we were just hoping that in a couple years we might have just something sort of like sex. All right.
Eating Sour Patch Kids is like sex. And
No,
all
it's
you
your
need, all you need
sobriety.
is a little bit.
It's your sober fixation.
This is.
Sweets. I'm also doing it. I'm getting more fat than I've ever been in my life.
See, that's my goal. My goal for this year,
Uh-huh.
grow my hair out, get a little fatter. Maybe
Yeah.
and this I know I've said this many times. Maybe a few more tattoos, but I'm not married to that idea. And then boom, just like I will just dive in to to massive ass, but we'll see. I could do soul bra mode. I don't know. I've tried to do like workout stuff in my life and it just I don't know. Michael, I'm drinking a 1500 calorie protein shake as I type this. Hell yeah. We're 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 uh
Oh,
we're mass gainers in this open mic. We're gooners, we're mass gainers,
Yeah.
we're kids that lie, and we're horny. We're horny kids that lie and goon and get fat. El Scully, I have no goals. No goals is the best. Fuck it all. Go and flirt with women and write poetry. That's all I gotta say. All right. Anything else, Peter?
I just wanted to say, and the part of the poem that I didn't write is that, as we were having this discussion, it became obvious to me that kids don't forget. You know, no one ever is able to forget. If you witness a death as a child, you just remember, you hold on to that shit for your whole life. I think everyone would agree with that point.
See, I
So,
think
you know,
thing. It's like as a kid, I never forget certain parts of an experience. Like this is super dark, but when my grandfather died and they did an open casket funeral, I'll never forget what it was like to like touch his hand and like I didn't just like oh I'm gonna go and touch his hand. My mom was like touch his hand, and I'm like okay,
whoa,
and like I touched his hand. Like I remember how cold it was, and I remember how I felt because that was the first time I ever touched a dead body, and like goddamn, it's like that's real shit. But I never forgot. I never forget. Nope. I forget how old I was, but yeah, I didn't forget that shit.
you don't forget it. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah, Peter. Thank you so much for again with your pieces and with I guess what you bring to the open mic. It's always a great discussion with it. So yeah, and I mean the chat just blowing up with people finding dead bodies and protein shakes and all this wonderful and AIDS. It's not a media agnostic doom journaling open mic if AIDS doesn't get mentioned at least once. So all right, we're gonna move on to our next reader. Let me scroll up to the list that I may consult the list. Okay, up next is Bizarre.
Oh, can you give me like 1 minute? I'm not quite ready. I
Okay.
just
Hey,
need
you
like
know what?
1 minute.
We can give you uno momento. We can go on to the person that was behind you, and then we can do a little switcheroo.
Yeah, let's just do that. Yeah, bump me down if you can. Thank you.
Hell yeah, no worries at all, Biz. Um, okay, so in that case, L Scully, you are now bumped up, and you are open. Or the mic is now open for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I was just smoking my little joint.
Hell yeah, perfect timing.
I was like, I have a minute. Um, Hi, I'm Elle. I'm super high. I can't really like say that much, but I'm just gonna, I know some of you, but not really. I'm gonna read you three sonnets. Okay. Thankfully, the truth is, I'm bored of my own despair. Fighting over what's intellectual or anti-intellectual gels me. I never want to hear queering as a verb again. Every gay is an anvil. We were supposed to inherit free will with our porcelain frogs. Get honest about who's fucking who raw. Transcend religion. The past was marred with illness and death, so we outsourced the future to someone else's illness and death. I'll be back in 10. You'll be smart, but more importantly, you'll be sharp. I know what happens to us. We'll be less like pigs and more like women. The most dangerous place in the... We sleep with a river between us. You dream broken legs, I dream broken hearts. We are vineyarding. Demons in the wine box, can the cat tell I harbor ill will? When I was a girl jumping hurdles, a funny thing happened. The hurdles grew into a ladder. I was just a boy fingering pictures of Vincent Gallo to induce an eating disorder. Mysticism was everywhere. We watched boats coast over beer cans, bodies. The single surviving BG misses childhood more than women or even wine. A one-eyed dog can sniff out spirits. To me, you exist only in winter. Truth or glare. Dream. I paddle a glass-bottomed boat. My favorite things grow teeth and hunt divers. I save no one, awaken to fresh cum. Psych Hospital plays documentary exposing the 3 keys to happiness. They are water, outdoor time, communal child rearing. Midwestern society is 0 for 3. Do you detect my hostility? Supervised showers burn cold. Hey, look who's awake. Bitches make zines. Reality. Most people here have no place to go. Better locked up than locked out. I think my dog is giving me autism. Artist and American both start with A. I'm all done.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, I thought you were reloading a fresh hit for the next one. El Scully, I loved this piece. I love all like a piece of one-liner bangers that all add up to this very like a quilt of not just the cringiness of love and despair, but like the beauty, the beautiful like northeastern like watching boats traverse beer cans and a boat with a glass bottom. And there's this like absurdist humor with like my dog giving my dog giving me autism, which I immediately thought of Cat with their dog Georgia. And like I never feel more autistic than when I'm with my cats because like I have that weird like little voice where I'm like, "How's it going? How's it going?" And I'm like, if anybody sees me right now, I am the I will not beat the autism allegations. I will not beat them. It's too much. Um, I loved. I have the. I mean, the very first line. I am bored of my own despair, and to me, that when I am writing poetry, there does come a moment where I'm like, God damn, dude, stop being so fucking depressed. Your life ain't that fucking bad. Like, there's some cool shit. And I felt that with this poem. Like, you were looking through all of these cool, like, intricacies of life, in the world, what it means to, and the Vincent Gallo line. I'm glad that people in the chat brought that up. That was very, I mean, this piece was just fun. It's about having fun, Jan, and this was a goddamn fun piece. I'm curious, has this been published anywhere, or has this a recent written sonnet?
So what I just read is like it's three sonnets, separate sonnets that I read like in quick succession, which is what I usually do at readings. So it kind of sounds like a long one, yeah, like one long piece.
Okay.
Um, but it's from a book that is, as of right now, slated to come out in 2029. But most of the individual sonnets have been published, and one of them is coming out with Come Punk.
Yay! Yay! We love cum punk, and also, yeah, the fresh cum line. I was like, ooh, that definitely sounds familiar because I don't know. Whenever I feel like Pee Wee Herman, whenever I hear the word cum, I'm like, like fucking.
Me too. I was having way too much sex as a teenage child, and that's why I'm like this now.
See, I was watching too much sex online as a teenager, and and of course, as we're sharing our vulnerabilities here, the first time for the first time, the only time when I lost my virginity, immediately after I watched an episode of Family Guy, and I can't remember which episode of Family Guy it was, but I'm like I need to go through a marathon where I just watch Family Guy, and when I find the episode, I feel like it'll come back to me. It has to. Because, I mean, kids don't forget, right? And there's no way that I would forget that episode, but I did. Fuck. But I'm so glad you added to that discourse. That's so funny.
Yeah, like there was just this one summer when I was really figuring out my sexuality where I was like doing a lot of dabs and watching BoJack Horseman with my really traumatized adopted friend. And then we became gay and like, abortion people, and it's been really good since then. I'm so high, you guys. Like literally, if I fall off this call, I'm so sorry. Don't do dabs.
I the few times I've done dabs, one, I threw up in a stranger's toilet and I don't remember how I got home. And the second time, I was at Bonnaroo and I went and saw Unknown Mortal Orchestra, and I don't remember anything from the Unknown Mortal Orchestra concert. But goddamn, I listen to them now and I'm like, wow, I saw them. But people are like, oh, how was it? I'm like, I don't know. I was too high to function. Oh God, fucking love dabs though. That's a high that has man, holy when I say makes you higher than giraffe pussy, you are higher than giraffe pussy. But El Scully, I love this piece. It kind of made me go back to childhood and relive your life up in the Northeast with the gayness, the rawness, the cum, and everything in between. I don't know. It was lovely. And of course, you only exist in winter, and winter is here with the fresh snow, the fresh, cummy snow on the ground, and everyone in this open mic, you exist and I love you so much. Thank you so much for reading, El Scully. All right. Now, without further ado, and I hope they're ready, and if they're not ready, that's okay because shit happens. Bizarre Miscreant. You are up next.
Hi, thank you so much for your flexibility. Yeah, I was not ready, but now I am.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Sound good?
okay, also I wanted to say, Scully, this is, I think, the first time that I've ever engaged with your work, and I just like really love your reading. Like that was just fire. So thank you. Okay, so tonight I would just be continuing with the journal entries. All right. At last light, the sky wears white, and the orange tree overhead rests her lashes and closes her lids. What things can be sent along the wire? Transfer electronic information through mitochondria receptors. Portals are living and working inside our bodies on a cellular level. A cellular network, cell phone, singular, spelled with a C, singular. We were always logged on, online by default. Such is life. Unseen mechanisms uncovered. Telepathy is our native language, but they call it mystical. But it's not imagination, it's connection. Oh my God, that sounds like GPT, but I definitely wrote that. A cancer cell is a narcissist, no longer connected to the grid. This is why heartbreak hurts so much. It crushed me when he unfollowed me on the intellectual timeline. Our synoptic fingers were interlaced in a way that you never held my actual hand. Um, okay, and then shifting into a different vibe and this next one. Saturday, sunshine, rays of light, and heat on the bed sheets. It's better to be warm than cold. Like electrons, we dance around an energy body continuously until we make our own type beat. The balcony welcomes the sun like a lover's embrace, and I wonder how life without romance is even worth living. I recall memories from dreams like screenshots from my real life. Take me back to November when our love was tender. I miss seeing that spark in your eyes. I could never be your everything. Seems like every time my heart is breaking, I see an old couple on the street, arms linked, love on display for the world to see. I think that's. Do you want to hear this one too? I'll just read this one too. Actually, no, we're skipping it. Okay, here's the last segment of tonight's reading. Oh Lord, if you hear my cries, I pray to thee. Send your angels to watch over me. The air in the room is growing stale, and the microwave is asking for meat. Feed it, feed me. Winter draws onward in a fractaling shape. We don't talk anymore, and now I struggle to remember how things once were between us. God, please send me your finest man to me, for I already belong to him. My future belongs to me already, soon as I can imagine it. But what home can I run to? What father have I? Send me your fiercest dragon to slay the evil eyes. They linger. Things change when you realize that the hands of the universe are your own. Words are magic to cast. That's why they're called spells. Everything in the solar system is in constant motion. With 10 houses in my orbit, I'm already home. I'm gonna read this one too. We'll just call it like an epilogue. The final signature. The last first page. The sunrise on the final day. I spread open my journal and inside its spine. To my surprise, I realized that I was mistaken. The final signature began already, without announcement. Relief fell over me like a weighted blanket. A woman on a podcast talked about her near-death experience. She had terminal cancer and went into a coma. My cats are fighting, I'm sorry. um, Bad timing. She had terminal cancer and went into a coma. But she was aware the entire time. She had 360-degree vision. And met her dad, her dead dad. She met her dead dad, who instilled the very fear by which she lived her life. His spirit merged with hers, and she forgave and understood him. She realized she wasn't ready to pass on. So when the time came to decide, she chose to wake up and live without fear this time. Instead, she aligns with love as her guide. May we all wake up and make a better way to paradise. And that is the end of it. Thank you.
This was fantastical and fantastic. And once again, the fact that these are just journals, the fact that this is just the bizarre mind wandering. I love from the get-go seeing life in these like mitochondrial processes. I remember as a kid, I would look at my arm and look at blood, like the veins of my arm, and then I'd look outside at the street and I'd make this connection that like the roads of a street are like like veins in a body, and to take that to like a neuronal level of like the body and online is just such a creative jump to start off the journaling, and then like with this network of our life. And then definitely agree it's better to be warm than to be cold, but it's one of those things where you have to be cold in order to appreciate the warm. And so like I don't know, there's a lot of this like spirituality and kind of carrying over from Scully with like this kind of appreciation for mysticism is just very refreshing. And also speaking on like you and Scully both had these pieces that I was like, damn, this is kind of what Scully was talking about. And so like this mention of like the future, that it belongs to you. It is a future that you can create. And Scully loves being cold. Man, I like my body when I sleep. I want my head to be cold, my feet to be warm because my feet are precious, even though some random stranger now has a picture of them. But it's like a shakeup of what my body wants. But anyways, I like that there's this like appreciation for the future as it is, something that you look forward to. There's not a lot of optimism nowadays, but also for the past, like the memories of lovers and old friends, pleas to God, with the spiritualism, there is this kind of, there is this like kind of respect for, like, I mean, hey, when I was going through the pandemic, motherfucker, I prayed. Shit, I cracked the Bible open. I read Job. God damn, it's scary times now. Like, it's hard to it's hard to be online and find healthy things that don't make you like so depressed that you just want to like fucking eat Sour Patch Kids in bed until you can't shit right for a day. Like, holy fuck. Um, but there is a very comforting comforting and soothing feeling I get from your journals, Biz. And let's see, Emily, you should drink orange juice instead of Sour Patch Kids. I, weird. I'm weird. I like to eat oranges, not drink orange juice. Same with apples. I can eat apples, but I can't drink apples. To me, the concept of smoothies, my body just can't, my brain doesn't process. I feel like I'm one of those like raw nationalists where like I just eat food raw. It's kind of like booty. You just got to eat it raw, untouched. Anyways, um, but Bizarre, I think that you should definitely hold on to all of these journals and string them along, and you can just see this unique development with, your mental health and how it kind of is. I don't know, to me, it like shows this sympathy and empathy that you have with the world and the universe that is truly your own and something that you own with grace. And seriously, thank you so much for reading this. I hope
Yo,
that.
like,
Oh no, yeah, Brody.
sorry to interrupt, but Bizarre, your last journal there gives me the vibe of like Madonna's Dear Jess video with all the fucking weird ass drawings and shit. I don't know why it does that, but it's pretty cool. You know the one like the cartoons like integrated with reality kind of that's the vibe your journaling gives me. It's really sick.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Rudy and Colton. Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, but like you were saying, it's like an interesting documentation of my mental health. Like, and these journals, I do literally guard them with my life. They're like my spell books, like the most important things. And yeah, but one thing that I will say, in response to your reflections is that it's so interesting seeing how it lands like on the listener. It seems like there is sort of this like optimism that was like felt from that, which I love because writing these these entries were born out of like a really dark place, like super dark, like feeling really hopeless and sad kind of place. And it's like, so writing it almost felt like I was just like clinging, to that like last thread through the writing, through the words. So I love hearing your reflections and others and all the flowers in the chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I totally understand. Like there was back when, I would go to Misery Loves Company and my writing was almost geared towards an open mic, but to write in a journal, something that is so just between you and your, the head and the hand, and then the words that appear, it's like casting a spell and then seeing the spell, seeing how your writing kind of takes on this life of its own. And it really is beautiful to look at, because so many times, I will just look at words on a screen and I'm like, what the fuck is this even doing? But then if I do it right, if I approach it in the right mindset, in the right way, and the words just fucking hit with that kind of that finesse, that rhythm, and that uh, synchronicity of like, okay, these words have an important kind of impact right there in the moment, then, oh, oh, god damn, it feels
The
so
flow state is, yeah,
good. Oh,
it's amazing. I love that.
and of course I'm going to relate this to pinball because I can relate anything to pinball. The flow state in pinball when you're just like you look at the game and you're looking down at your fingers just going crazy and people are like, "Wow, how did you do that?" And you're like, "I could not tell you." And that is something beautiful about art when you're just doing it and people are like, "How did you do that?" And you're like, I don't fucking know. Maybe you hit the joint and you just get so balls giraffe pussy high that the words just come out. Maybe you're in such a state of jouissance or melancholy or joy, or you're in a goon state and you are just able to really get through that like embarrassment and the shame and guilt of what you're putting onto paper, and it's just like fuck it, who cares? And that is such a hard thing to find nowadays, and especially if you've been in the game for a long time as a creator. But man, uh let's see, also, Kaz, there anything better, trippier than watching people talk about art you made when your life was falling the fuck apart? God damn, yes it is. It's so weird for people to read my book published by Pigris Publishing, Abuser, and like, whoa, man, talk about it. We're going through some crazy times, and for people to be like, yeah, this is amazing work, and I'm like, thank you so much. I almost died. Like, it was fucking crazy, but Biz, this was. I mean, these journals are again an extreme meditation on vulnerability, and you are getting, it's almost not correct to say you are getting better, but I think that you are training your senses in ways that are so beneficial to you. And yeah, these are uniquely your own journals, and they read that way. They feel amazing, and yeah, I can't wait to hear more. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh my goodness. This is a fucking great bunch of pieces tonight. Thank you all again. Once again, my name's Morgenrede. This is Media Agnostic Doom Journaling. This reading, open mic series, poetry reading, slam poetry, sing songs about children dying, fucking share screens of crazy artificial poetry, voice to text is something that only happens on Zoom every Friday night at 7:30. And sometimes you might see my feet, which is an added bonus. I should really make this shit pay-per-view, but I don't believe in that shit. Anyways, up next, god damn it, I have to go up to my list. I have to get past all of these really nice chat words and images. And there's Michael Washington with his protein shake. Michael, what's the update on the protein shake? Have you finished it yet? Let's see. Okay. All right. Consulting the list. Up next, we have Mark Parsons.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you all hear me? Do I need to speak up?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Seeing and hearing tonight. I'm going to read two poems. I'm going to post links to both the poems in the group chat if you want to read them and follow along. The first one, let's see. And they should be in the group chat there. The first one was published recently, kind of, on Urban Pigs Press. It is the second poem, and it's about halfway down the page. The title of the poem is Leaf Pile, Particle Board, Indent, Walking It Off. A head-on collision in the median ditch left me a Titanic hood ornament, swan diving over my pickup's front end, arms and legs akimbo. My eyes, blue safety glass, spider crack, shrink wrapped. Tint from the laminate, bluing the spires of some conifers high on a ridge where the road engineers blasted through limestone, the trees coming closer and spinning like vertical columns of side brushes car washes use, or dervishes dressed up in foam-fingered, fringed ghillie suits. When I finally come to rest like a paratrooper, my silk parachute canopy snagged in the canopy branches, I'm trussed and suspended in harness, thick nylon straps cleaving numb buttocks, still buzzed with nerve damage. The ground might as well be a mile down. Perfect end to the floor routine of my dreams, so close. I stuck something all right, but it wasn't the landing. Plunged in the petrified stew of prehistory, core sampled by drilling or auger, a stake driven through the heart of this vampire that's time, by the hand of a vampire who hunts vampires. I can feel the sensations below diffusing and wicking away like reverse capillarity, second and third generations of roots grown off the taproot a mandrake produces to anthropomorphic effect where the semen was spilled by the hanging of innocent men, but gravity's promise deferred, and walking it off by walking in place. I just swivel around like a spindle with fins, agitate ghosts of the bivalves, crustaceans, and cephalopods, suspended like fossils in air that is thicker than gelatin, one more ingredient added to stop flavored with orange zest, fennel, and saffron, the main attraction in someone's ectoplasmic bouillabaisse. The second poem, I'll give you the second poem was originally published by Matt Forney, who was always really nice to me, on his old literary website that's now defunct, Terror House. And I posted a link that's through the Wayback Machine, which saved these poems. And the poem I'm going to read is about a third of the way down the page. And it's titled Quickie to Thai and Fast Food Restaurant. And this poem, I'll give you a quick note. Quickie refers to a brand of wheelchair. They're well-known company that makes wheelchairs, the Quickie brand of wheelchairs. Quickie to Thai and fast food restaurant. She studied the menu and looked 15. I thought, she looks 15. She turned to look at me, her face cutting into the distance between us like a prow through sea ice or an axe splitting wood. She projected from her wheelchair the aura of an animal leg trapped and struggling to get free from under a boulder or felled tree, using the muscular power of shoulders and arms only, her lower region from the waist bereft of sensation. Bound and constricted for so long, it had become a haunting impression she was used to dragging around, trailing behind her like a wake. In her mind, something like a train. Her presence was like an absence. I felt more absent with every passing moment. The more present she came across, the more cut off I felt. Although cut off from whom or what, I couldn't say. I stared and stared. She was like an instrument panel in the cockpit of a plane that stalled before it starts to spin. The dials and gauges were telling me everything, if I could only understand. To complement her wheelchair, the equivalent of pressing my tongue to the icy flagpole outside in the parking lot, it was sad how her narrow hips and back and shoulders didn't fill the slung black leather seat embroidered with white thread. I figured she'd continue wanting broken off bits and pieces of me until she was sated, until it dawned on me. Like the most exquisite and engrossing houseplants, such a state could never exist for her. I wondered if she had access to this self-knowledge. A family, if she came with one, was nowhere in sight. The silence caught me off guard, a problem compounded by total lack of activity outside the bright, cold Sunday morning, floor-to-ceiling glass street side of the restaurant. Shattered and weightless, I waited. The stainless steel counter hummed with what would never cease to be metal smeared with color and light, motion and stillness. Disembodied, thirsty, labored breathing, tightness of chest. Many people end up disembodied while stoned and relate their experience later in the context of getting high one time and whatever, not in the context of a transcendental experience that conveyed the limits of a carnal, secular life. They believe because they were high, it affects in a way less than optimal the spiritual yield such suffering affords. Which reminds me, talking really on the level, this wasn't disembodied, but just the opposite, except real thirsty. She wasn't dressed warmly in matching electric turquoise gym shorts, t-shirt, a lot of skin showing, and of what was showing, there wasn't much, period, muscle or fat or much there at all. She showed no interest in any suggestion I put forth. Worse than not having any ideas, having only the wrong ideas. A little over-the-top dishabille, all I'm getting from her. And me, so thirsty all my life. 8th grade, a hard-on in the stairwell as I watched the girls in their plaid skirts and burgundy loafers climb the stairs, downy baby fat rippling like surface tension on the backs of thighs. I believed I could keep it up forever. A mistake by now around so long. If it's a case of her or me, I won't be a factor, even if some while gone, disposed to entertain what you suggest. Running away, there's a dignity to it all its own. We're both of us stranded, one of us stranded and with child, but neither stranded nor with child. The other one, not in any sense stranded or with child, and totally, authentically, in every way you can think of, stranded with child. Our situations both come down to the same thing. Therefore, until such time as this arrangement becomes inconvenient and, so doing, ceases to be, this is it. The wind here hard and sharp enough to etch a prehistoric glyph for compassion on an outcrop of black obsidian as gently rounded as a cornea atop a knoll? What's at odds or working at cross purposes, but also what's at stake? In the end, I'll live vicariously through her. Both of us here still, our halcyon days, understanding each other, psychically attuned, the hero and heroine do nothing. If things work out for us, maybe someday, harried too close, I'll forget myself and slip through a crack between hunches and bends, the only trace of my proximity, bright paisley shapes on her retina. In the moldering ghost between each pulse, light shape over light shape obliterates my features etched in whitish lines on too high a resolution to recognize, separate, and get lost in a single color. There's no such thing. And so on to infinity, also known as the binary language of computers. There's something missing. What's missing might be Stephen Vincent Benet. Every alternative to her alternative existence, more distressing the closer we get to a resolution, either sound disingenuous or get committed to watching something I can't control and furthermore want nothing to do with. The next thing to go missing, me. Get some sleep. We've got a long stay ahead of us. Thank you.
Wow. 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 Once again, Mark, pieces that, at least for this reading, just these intense investigations into these micro moments. The first piece being this head on collision, and then this perspective of a hood ornament, and kind of this like fractalization of nature and this winter scene and pieces of car and, you know, I guess the protrusion of objects in space and time and this kind of physicality. And then with the second piece, this Terror House piece of this investigation of this person, looking at this woman in this wheelchair and just this almost like a romantic breakdown of me and her and the way she looks and the way I look from the way she looks at me and all of this. I mean, from her in the chair and her presence and everything about her as it complements the speaker, the narrator, and how that kind of informs the reader about intentionality and sensuality and desire. I mean, just so unique. And definitely, there is an attraction to something that is, I mean, different's not the right word, but, as a person, when you see something that catches your eye, I'm trying to think of something in my own. I always try to relate a piece to my own life because I think that great works, have this relatability. But almost in a way, this is something that I guess is kind of new to me, but or not new to me, but this situation right here is new to me. But there is something to be said about kind of I don't know, this, like, for some reason throughout this piece I was thinking of Goethe and I was thinking of the sorrows of young Werther. And I don't know why that. I mean, you could probably make sense of why it kind of brought this up to me, but just the not obsession, but this, I guess, compulsion. I guess these compulsory thoughts or the infinite moments that can be conceived just through a single look. That's what came to mind, and I guess the real and true heartbreak of wanting, but unlike Goethe, this is something that is more honest and more raw. Um, I like the that one line: "Worse than not having ideas, having only wrong ideas." Uh, Thirsty all of my life, and then we're both of us stranded. And there is like stranded in this moment, and it just was, seeing this person looking at a menu. Um, I don't know. I'm curious to know more about that piece. If you wanted to share more about kind of your intentions with it, or if I'm kind of hitting the right marks here.
Oh, I think you're definitely hitting the right marks. You know, uh, uh, two people can share a glance or just be in proximity to each other for a brief moment, and something can pass between them. Uh, on some level, and you know, it can be a mysterious kind of thing. I believe that there was, when I wrote that there was a poem I had read recently by a poet, Amy Gersler, and she had I thought it was from her book Bitter Angel, that had a poem about uh, kind of a young lady who was a cripple or was in a wheelchair or something. Uh, but it may have also been partly inspired by my best friend's wife, who was a quadriplegic. Um, and we were very close at that time. And I spent a lot of time with both of them. And I remember one time we were all riding around in my friend's pickup, and his wife Lou was in the this was like a 1980s 1980 Silverado, and so it had like that bench seat and it had these huge tires, and Lou was between us, and first of all, it was my best friend's wife, and so I didn't like touching her. I didn't like physically touching her, and secondly, she was a quadriplegic, so I had like a visceral, like it just really makes me insanely uncomfortable to touch people when they're paralyzed. And I don't know if there's a name to describe that, but it's profoundly discomforting. And she was just kind of like a sack of potatoes between us, because we were all very poor, and like it wasn't a proper quadriplegic or wheelchair kind of situation. And so she would just, and so, she would like, slide into me on a turn, and I'd just like plaster myself to the door. Yeah. Because I was just like, oh my God, what do I do? It's like, what do I do with this person? And I suppose I'm like, that all sounds very problematic. But I love both of them very, very much. And they were, and she knew this about me, and she laughed at, she found it incredibly funny how uncomfortable I felt. She was a very down to earth, and really just this wonderful, effervescent personality. And aside from the fact that she did not think I was probably the most wholesome influence on her husband, uh, considering that, we probably fell down drunk in the gutters in front of every bar in the state of Oklahoma,
Nice.
together. Uh, and she probably got annoyed at that. Although I never got him in jail, and he got me out of jail several times.
Nice.
But that probably that relationship with them figures a lot in both of these poems. But like you said, I am familiar with the sorrows of young Werther, and there's quite a bit of that, in kind of a romantic way of how these very small moments can very significant things can pass between people.
Yeah, and they can generate these intense, like not an overthinking kind of, I mean, just like this. It's like delusory and overthinking, but more romantic, where it's more like of like I think investigation is kind of the word that kind of comes to mind here. But I know what you mean because that feeling, like the feeling you had towards your friend's wife, is how I feel with my friend's kids. Because like I am the youngest in my family, like I'm the runt of the family, so I've
If
always
you ever think they're grooming you, you're right. They are grooming you. Like don't believe anything else, man. Kids are just like adults, except they have no moral, ethical restraints.
they
Okay, if
never
they
forget.
could, they would string you up like a trout and gut you like right there. You know, they're like cats.
They know. And the fucked up thing is you can like I make eye contact with kids in fucking grocery stores. They know. They
I
look
love kids, by the way. Okay, so I'm
see,
not I'm not denigrating kids. I'm just saying if you feel like you're being groomed, like you probably are.
see for me it's like I don't hate kids, but I just don't know how to I guess I don't know how to talk to them. Like I don't know. Like see like in a situation where like I'm in a car and I have to sit next to someone's kid, I am against the wall, I'm against the windshield, and I am like, oh man, it is such a I'm just like I've been the baby for so goddamn long, and whenever there are other people younger than me that have no control over how they sneeze and fart and shit, it is just such a intrusion on my bubble. And I don't know. And I try to my friends, of course, they make jokes at me. Let's see, lo-fi, make fart sounds. That's true. Oh, I thought you said do it now. Dude, I love fart sounds. That's one thing that can unite child and adult are farts. I don't know about y'all, but when I'm depressed, I go on whatever social media and I just look up farts and just look up farts. Such a such a easy dopamine hit. But anyways, I could talk about farts all day. Going to that first piece of the leaf pile, particle board, indent. I mean, I love that how this title actually kind of predicts the entire piece, but there's just so much of your descriptive writing around very intense moments of action. It's like a car crash slowed down, um, and the just interesting the visual of a stake driven through the heart of this vampire that's time by the hand of a vampire who hunts vampires. Just really fucking cool language here, but a Titanic hood ornament, swan diving over my pickup's front end. Like for just starting off from that perspective and then kind of blooming outward, or if I'm gonna use language used earlier, fractaling outward. It's just very, very cool. I think it just shows your range to go from this like mental neuronal writing of momentary instances of the human condition to then taking moments of action that are kind of in a blip and then being so descriptive through each moment in very like surreal kind of ways. It is just super fucking cool, Mark.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Colton.
Yeah.
Thank you for having this space. As always, it's wonderful to see so many people here. But thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your work. And of course, if I could say what this space is about, it's being uncomfortable around children and the handicapped. But also, we love children and we love the handicapped. It's a unique kind of relationship that we have with the outside world around us. But this is all in support of Rudy Johnson, our most disabled resident poet. We love them and we support them no matter what, and we will be cheering them on at the next Special Olympics.
I'm a fucking retard.
Yes. God damn it. I think that should be your next sell on your next book is just buy my book. I'm fucking retarded.
That's generally how I sell my poetry.
Like, why should we buy your book? So, I'm retarded. Who knows? It could work. I like turtles.
That was fucking awesome, though. Good, Mark. I love this.
What's that, Rudy?
Yeah, that was awesome. The level of detail of some of the things. I think the stairwell hard on line really hit it home for me because that was like a very like place and time for me, I guess. Call it that. I could picture, yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that connected with you, and let me tell you, it's for real. Disabled representation.
Hell yeah, dude.
My friend was talking about his wife because I wrote this and showed it to him, and he said, in culture there's a tendency to sort of infantilize disabled people, right? And de-sex them. Disabled people tend not to be villains in movies and TV shows, and they tend not to be given to vices like envy or lust or wrath. These things and he said, that's that kind of he said some people that he knew through his wife felt like that was infantilizing, right? It's like we aren't supposed to see disabled people, particularly physically disabled people, as fully rounded characters, who have dark sides like the rest of us. So yeah, sex them up, baby. Hyper sex those disabled people, fetishize them, I guess.
Hell yeah.
There needs to be a Forrest Gump porno, and if there is not one already, if Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump has not been Rule 34 yet, I think we've failed as a nation. And
well, Crispin Glover, the guy who played Marty McFly's dad in Back to the Future, right? The father who was kind of a goofball. He has a trilogy of films called What Is It? And I forget what the second and third one are, but they are filled with Down syndrome kids actors who have Down syndrome, and also the main villain of the trilogy is a man with cerebral palsy, who is also the writer of the script of the trilogy of movies, and he is at one point shown full frontal nude on an enormous clamshell, right? Like Venus on the half shell, except it's a middle-aged man with cerebral palsy in a fetal position, naked on a clamshell that opens up, and that is the actual screenwriter, and he is also the villain. So Crispin Glover has been there, and he is doing it. He's doing God's work. He also has, well, there are many things in that movie, and probably the naked man with cerebral palsy on the half shell is the least objectionable, least problematic thing in all the movies, as far as I know. So,
God damn it! If you can find,
check it out. Particularly if you want to go into the disabled villain plot. If you can find it, definitely worth checking out.
excellent. I'm definitely gonna look that up. Also, I did find there is a porno of Forrest Gump, and it is called Foreskin Gump. It was made in 1994. So yeah, if anybody,
What's it about?
uh,
Does the foreskin like go through time and like meet different figures in history?
see. I love how on Letterboxd it is described as a poorly inspired porn parody of Forrest Gump, but with some good sex scenes.
What is this foreskin like special or something?
I mean, it would have to be if they made
Yeah.
the entire title of the movie. Emily, you don't like that title? I like it. I mean, they could have made it Forrest Pump, and
Yeah.
it could have been that vulgar. Well, it's got to be vulgar. The movie's about fucking, and God knows that they paid a porn star to act like a special needs man
Wait,
who
you think Forrest Gump is special needs?
absolutely.
Oh.
Well, God damn it. All right. You know what? This is after party topic. I need you to put a big fat pin in this conversation because we got to return to this because we could go on and on and on. Anyways, thank you, Mark, again for the readings, and of course, we need more cerebral palsy villains. We need to vilify the disabled. Um, anyways, the next reader is Keith.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for letting me read tonight. It's a tough act to follow. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Can hear you loud and clear, Keith.
Okay. So I've got a short story and a poem tonight. They're not transgressive, but they are regressive because I pulled some notes as some of these intros went. We don't forget. They're built around songs, but I'm not going to sing. The poem, the second one, is fun. There's no moral or ethical restraints, and it's built around the song Dancing in the Moonlight, King Harvest, 1972. And the first piece, the story, is built around the song Poncho and Lefty. And I've got a couple of props here that pop up in this. So this is an album with Doc and Merle Watson, flat top guitarist, blind. His son Merle, he comes up in the story. And I didn't have a Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, but I did have the Merle Haggard Greatest Hits album and the song Poncho and Lefty's on the album. So with those props, I'll get off camera and read. Finding Pancho and Lefty. This is how it begins. Your friend sends you a Billy Strings video, Pancho and Lefty. You open YouTube to watch it. You get lost in Strings' music and end up in the past. And now you're out west with the Federales. You remember the song. You knew it so well. You got chills every time you heard it on the radio. You even got the album for Christmas. And it was the only song you wanted to hear over and over and over. What is it about a song that does that to a person? Was it the transition you were making between musical genres and the novelty of discovery? Was it because the President of the United States had welcomed a red-headed stranger, a renegade, an outlaw into the White House and ultimately into mainstream America? The flat-top picking of Doc Watson and his son Merle, that's what you were listening to. Old school country and bluegrass, the type of country music that wasn't played on the radio, so you bought their albums. And like it was yesterday, you remember when you saw Doc and Merle one night in downtown Athens, Georgia, at a small, smoky pub with about 50 people. It's a few years later, and you've transitioned from college life to real work. You're living in a little podunk town out in the middle of the woods in what everyone called the Panhandle, the western section of Florida that joins Alabama. Now you're waking up to Dolly Parton singing Here You Come Again. Not by choice, though. AM radio play left a lot to be desired back in those days, and your alarm clock radio didn't have an FM band. You always thought that Dolly was so much older than you, way out of your league. And now that you know the rest of the story, maybe she wasn't. On second thought, yeah, she was. Living on the road, my friend, is going to keep you free and clean. Now you wear your skin like iron and your breaths are hard as kerosene. Weren't your mama's only boy, but her favorite one, it seems. She began to cry when you said goodbye and sank into your dreams. But you're getting ahead of yourself. You were telling about your musical transitions and the limitations of technology. You're trying to figure out how you got to where you are today at this very moment. You discovered that song on the special add-on FM radio, riding the back roads of rural Florida in the F-100. Covered by an artist who only a few years earlier had been outside of the mainstream. Today, that artist is now mainstreamed, courtesy of that American president that introduced Willie Nelson to America. And the red-headed stranger became a staple in music. And with another outlaw, Merle, not Watson, but Haggard, the two artists needed a song, one last song to finish out their album, a song that they had heard but never covered. They knew that artist Emmylou Harris had covered it with some success. So Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson decided to finish their album with the song Pancho and Lefty. And that's the arrangement that has stood the test of time. The poets tell how Pancho fell, left his living in a cheap hotel. The desert's quiet and Cleveland's cold. But let's get back to the real roots of that song, before Emmylou and Willie and Merle. The artist who originally wrote and sang it was virtually unknown to the masses. He was extremely talented, but he had demons. And those demons kept him resigned to playing night after night in honky-tonks. There's a lot more to the story of Townes Van Zandt, but let's not get bogged down in those details. Let's think about the music and how a song can play on repeat in our heads, and how discovering something new is like a child recognizing a smile for the first time. How we all love to live in childlike wonder, and how a song by a honky tonk honk guitar playing artist can stay with us for the rest of our lives. That's the first piece. And the second piece, Dancing in the Moonlight, is titled Full Moon Shadows. We were dancing in the moonlight, singing, frolicking, loving, acting our age, and our ship was soon to sail, but not before one last kiss in the moon shadows. Love at last. And we all high-fived, stumbling off the ramp, dreaming of the next one. And on that night, we all lived twice. Fantasies became realities. Realities became fantasies. Full moon rising, and it was nice. The weight of the world off our shoulders, if only for a while. That's it. Thank you.
Keith, this is awesome. These pieces were great. Love the poem, but I want to focus a little bit on that first piece of that unique uh, coverage of the Towns Van Zandt, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard. My dad really, he's a country music fan at heart, and it, I wish that it had translated to me earlier in my life, but I loved how you kind of focused in on this unique moment in country music history. And I wish I had more. Again, I wish I had more knowledge about just kind of this. Of course, Jeff and other listeners are much more bigger fans of. I think out of all of these, I know more about Willie Nelson, but it's a tough industry with country music, and to have something like this song to become so big, and to inspire, these other musicians, Merle and Willie, is amazing. I'm just curious, what kind of brought you to write about this song? Was it like something like, was it just a favorite song of yours that you wanted to investigate more, or?
It's the way I started it. A friend sent me the Billy Strings video where he's playing and performing Poncho and Lefty.
Hmm.
And that just kind of triggered my thoughts about it. I wrote this piece a year or two ago, and I couldn't. I got down. I didn't know. I didn't have it finished, and I just didn't know where I wanted to go with it. And I came up with an ending for it because I didn't want to go into all the history of Towns Van Zandt. So I just cut all that. I summarized that. There's a lot of stories about him, but I didn't. I wanted the focus to be on just the song and how songs tend to affect us and stay with us. And uh, I still listen to it some, but of course I've moved through a lot of different genres of music. And right now I'm in with Ren Gill. Some of you know about this. He's a musician from Wales, who's about in his early 30s, mid 30s, and I'm into his music. Has some really good music. But so, and the other piece, the Dancing in the Moonlight, was based on a situation, a night. That's all I will say.
Well, you can keep your mysteries, Keith. But no, I agree with Zoom user in the chat. The use of multiple covers of an iconic song as a lens for exploring different moments in your own life. I think there's something so kind of uncanny about one song being covered multiple times, and to have, I mean, regardless of who covers it, it brings to life that artist. There's no other, you can't rewrite a book under, I mean, you can make a different edition and add your own thoughts, but that still doesn't take away from the author. I mean, I look at like bands like Metallica, where they covered what was it? Was it Diamond Head? And some of the songs that they covered just made them superstars. Am I Evil? Being a great example. And with country music, there is such a unique kind of tight knit community uh, within that genre, and to have this song go through, Merle and Willie, and then Billy Strings, who I've heard some of their work, but not a lot. To see this kind of generational appreciation for songs that are just timeless, it can really be a validating kind of feeling. But also, it's for in different parts of your life, you reflect back on this song and how the original made you feel, and you listen to these covers and like, okay, how do they make me feel? And regardless, you still have this appreciation. And I also agree with Zoom user expand. I don't know if you intended, to cut out some of the meat of the piece just to get straight to the point, but this is a piece where you could go on and on and on. And I think that you should absolutely, write more about Towns Van Zandt. Um, just something that's,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that I don't know. I love when people write about things that they like, and you definitely have a great, say like with Jeff, this great appreciation for music. And it's a side of you that sometimes we see, but it comes up every now and then. And you've definitely had a life full of experiences, which is maybe a nice way of saying you're old, but lovingly, of course. And you have just a great storytelling voice and way of writing that you give this song life more so than the song already has a life on its own. But for you to put your life alongside this song, it again just is so complimentary.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the suggestions and ideas. And the song Dancing in the Moonlight, I I don't know if y'all know, you probably know the song. It's been re-released several times by different groups, but I I didn't want to write anything about it in that song. But it's actually, if you read up on it, it's a fun song the way it's composed, very lighthearted. And it was years after it came out that it was discovered that there's a lot of tragedy behind that story. So I'll just leave it at that. If you're interested in researching and following the checking on that song, it's it's incredible how it came together.
And this is Dancing in the Moonlight by Top Loader.
That's the 2000. That's one that was released in 2000, but the original
Oh,
was
Sherman Kelly.
King Harvest.
Oh, King Harvest.
King Harvest, it was released in 1972, I think. That was the one that was the hit song, and well, it's still been popular through the years. But the lyrics to it just completely over the story behind the lyrics, which is just amazing. It's just an interesting, very interesting story.
Oh wow. So yeah, I'll go ahead and share it while we're on this call. Song was written in 1969 while recovering from a vicious assault by a gang. He envisioned an alternate reality, the dream of a peaceful and joyful celebration of life. He was the first victim of a vicious St. Croix gang who eventually murdered 8 American tourists. God damn. He suffered multiple facial fractures and wounds and was left for dead. Wow. Yeah, I mean
and
that's incredible.
he wrote this song as part of his recovery.
God bless. I mean, yeah, it just goes to show that you have to really, I mean, some of the best art out there just comes from such immense suffering, or I guess pulling yourself out of these pits of tragedy and despair. But yeah, I mean, unreal. Um,
Well, they weren't transgressive, but I appreciate the chance to share them.
yeah, of course. Again, they were regressive, going
Yeah,
back.
right. Regressive. Thank you.
Of
Thanks for the comments too. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Keith. We always love having you at these open mics, and it's always a pleasure to hear you read and to see there's the variety of I don't know, ways that you interpret life, music, history, and yeah, and so forth. Thank you so much. All right. I think we have done everybody in our list. If anybody else that is listening or has joined us late, if you want to read, just message in the chat. Kat, were you wanting to read?
Yeah, I'll read. I have one. I'm a little worried that I already read this like last week. So if I did, like literally interrupt me and stop me because I did like an in-person reading where I read this, and I'm not sure if I also read it here. But this is a poem about my neighbor. Does that sound like familiar? No, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
but like you can still read it. I don't give a fuck.
No, I'm not gonna read it again. If I already read it, I'm not gonna read it again. Somebody else can. I don't want to just like take up air. Somebody else can read.
Well, I don't want you to feel weird. You can read the same piece. It don't fucking matter.
Okay, I'll read it. I'm literally just, I don't want to read the
I'm
same
pointing
thing
a
again.
gun at you right now, Kat. You read it, or I swear to
Okay,
God.
I'm reading it. I'm reading it at gunpoint, even though I already read it. It's called The Man Upstairs. I literally just read this, man. All right, it's a poem about my neighbor, and it's called The Man Upstairs. Exactly. Yeah, Tyler's heard this one because I already read it. All right. I can't read with the gun pointed at me. It's really distracting.
Safety's off. Don't worry.
Okay. Um, B-Man admits he's done bad things in life, but never to a woman. Pouring you beers in the empty museum of his kitchen, peanut butters your dog with a green plastic spoon. Like those guys who made fun of you in high school if they loved their mothers. B-Man was committed at 12 to a lacrosse team and became a man, faster, bigger, louder, better than you or them or any of their fathers. But he wouldn't hurt a fly unless a fly stopped you on the way here and said something mean. B-Man has a habit of shouting out of windows, pining from Olympus for a pen, a zin, a pair of Bluetooth earbuds, and you never say no, and you never catch his keys. He says he's a 70s neighbor, down for Jeopardy, forensic files, and walking your dog after work. On his first night in town, he broke down the door of a woman who OD'd in her apartment. Thanksgiving, fresh off the hurricane that wrecked his last house in the holy land of Clearwater, Florida. B-Man has a 90-inch TV, and A60s that look wet from crying. Excuse me. One night after leaving his place, you dreamt the rain had flooded your apartment, covered it all in a sheet of green-gray mold. It was the worst nightmare you'd ever had. B-Man never stays anywhere long, and he never keeps his furniture. B-Man's Xbox will live forever in your living room. On his last night in town, B-Man lets you cut your lines with his out-of-state license with a safe driver sticker. He tells you to take good care of yourself and teaches your dog to spin with nothing but a cup of French fries. A room full of sports guys and a TSA agent he wants to fuck. He grabs your shoulders and points at your dog and tells you, "There's a human soul in there, I swear." She has diarrhea for the next 2 days. There's the poem. Again, this time at gunpoint.
I am putting the barrel down. I am taking the ammo out. This is such a good piece on second read. And of course, the more you hear something, the better you can hear some of the moments of the piece. And so the moments of like the human soul and the dog having diarrhea is hilarious. Just a hilarious ending to that entire piece. And I'm just imagining like back when I would go to bars, just the drunkest dude there coming up to me and just pointing at an animal. There's a human soul in there. I'm like, okay, uh-huh. But I love how human and I love how chaotic this piece is with just the 70s neighbor who wants to watch Jeopardy. Being in the snow has helped me to get out of my apartment. I left my cats with like all the food they would ever need and the heaters on and whatnot. And I hung out with with my coworker and their roommate, and we like made soup and we played Rummy Cube, which I'll whoop anyone's ass in this goddamn open mic of Rummy Cube. Y'all fucking challenge me. I swear to God, I will not fucking hesitate. Um, but it was just like very wholesome. And this piece, of course, took me back to doing cocaine with a bunch of college buddies, and we all started to rap. And I tried to rap, and I wasn't very good. So I just let somebody else rap, and they were a lot better than me. And I was like, okay, maybe I should just stick to doing cocaine and not rapping. And that was the immediate birth and death of my cocaine fueled rap career. But I love I love just how chaotic and silly this piece is with, and of course I think the most chaotic moment of this entire piece was the guy wanted to fuck a TSA agent. Hell nah, hell nah. I have only had sexual feelings towards one TSA agent, and that was in I think that was in Los Angeles with this very tall, very tough looking Latina woman. And I forget what I was doing, but I was going through I think the scanner, and I forget, what did she tell me? She said something so like aggressive. I didn't take it as aggressive, but her coworkers were like, "God damn, girl, you don't gotta treat the guy like that. You don't gotta say something like that." And I was like, I'm horny. You better let me go, or we're gonna have a problem. I'm gonna be stuck here really hard. What were you gonna say, Kat?
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I don't know. I wrote this poem because this is like when I thought, because this guy keeps like moving away and then like moving back, obviously, because that's like what this type of guy does. And like the first time that he moved away, I was like, oh man, like I kind of just I'm like gonna miss him, you know? Like I sort of like wanted to write a poem for him, but it's like impossible to write a poem like for someone like this without it turning into like a portrait of a person who's like weird and a mess. And I told him like he knows that I write poetry, and I told him that I like do readings and stuff, and he was like, yeah, I want to join your like me and Jen. He's like, I want to join your poem league. Like, hey, you should like
Poem League.
yeah, he was like,
Poem League.
yeah, so that's what I was thinking about when I was reading this, that I'm reading the poem about him in the poem league. But anyway, I genuinely did not remember if I had read this or an earlier version of this or something, but thank you for letting me read it again either way so that I could tell that anecdote.
If there's any lesson that you guys can learn about how to host an open mic, is that you threaten people with guns to share
Yeah,
their
bring a
work.
gun.
Threaten people with weapons. Gun violence in America helps create great art. That's all I gotta say. But also, I gotta say that there is something to be said about the guy who moves away and comes back. Also, on the converse, the woman that moves away and comes back and always makes this like grand social media post of like, "Hey everybody, I'm back," and then you like see them on dating apps and you're like, "Oh no, rest in peace, all of these fucking horny dudes that have to like go through this shit again." Oh, bizarre YouTube gonna cap me. I fucking dare YouTube to cap me. I'll fucking put my feet on the goddamn camera again. I might do it. I might put my fucking feet up again. But yeah, Emily, moving away and going back is spiritually draining. There, like, I had a friend who lived in Memphis for maybe 2 years. They moved around Memphis, just moved around the city like 3 or 4 times. And by the fourth time, I told this bitch, I was like, stop. Stay in one goddamn place. Yes, Elvis Memphis. And like I've lived in my apartment for almost 7 years now, and one, the rent is too fucking good. Even if this place all falls apart, like I don't know. I would like to think that I've retained some stability and some kind of sensibility as a person being in one place. I have, of course, couch surfed and couch slept and been at other people's apartments during very hectic situationships, but for the most part, yes, moving is like breaking up with your home. Yes. And also, Emily, do they have rent control here? Fuck no, bro. If this city can let fucking people like Martin Luther King Jr. get assassinated, fuck no, we ain't got no rent control. Um, Sometimes you have to break up with your home. Damn, that's real. I tried to break up with Memphis, and I went and lived up north in D.C. for a semester, and I hate. That was when Trump got elected, and I hated politics, and I wanted to come home, and I've hated politics ever since, and I've hated everybody who's ever lived in D.C. Not everyone who's ever lived, but for the most part, D.C. sucks. Anyways, goddamn cat, you got me monologuing and rambling. Um, please write more poetry about strangers and other people in your life because you do a very good job of it, and you do it in a way that again kind of like bizarre, it's just so empathetic without harboring too much sympathy, and it's honest and it's funny as hell. And I feel like the kind of person you are attracts these very like sincere weirdos, especially up in Philly. So yeah, absolutely, retain the weirdos, write about them, and share it with us, the weirdos that live behind the screen and on your phone, because we will appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kat. Okay, so I was not going to read because I believe that we have our last but not least reader, Emily. But Emily, before you read, I'm going to read a piece because I need to read this piece out loud, see how it sounds. I'm writing a historical fiction piece for a writing contest, and if I win first place, I get $1,000, and I could do a lot of cool shit with $1,000. Me and Keith have been working on this piece together. We've been doing some very interesting historical research, and it is about a woman who her son died in World War One, and she was um, given the opportunity to visit her son's grave in France, which is where this gentleman died. And so I wanted to write a piece about what it is like to go through these feelings and emotions of being a next of kin of a soldier at war, and to go through these feelings of grief and loss, and to just kind of write a historical fiction piece that is of the 20th century versus the 19th century. I'm going to share the Google Doc link here. I believe it should work for everybody. Is it Southern Gothic? Not necessarily, even though the lady that this piece is based on, her name is Nellie Cockrell. She died and is buried in Memphis. The piece is, I don't know, we'll see. So it says untitled, but a working title that I have now for this piece is Where You Will Stay. Flora shifted in her chair as the steamer pushed against the waves of the Atlantic that kept great nations separate, and probably for good reason. We stayed up late in the main hall of the ship that evening as the other women had retired to their rooms. The night sky was clear, and the stars quickly went by as the boat continued towards Europe. We drank coffee and sat in silence mostly. But suddenly, Flora looked at me and asked the question that was on both of our minds. Are you going to bring him back? Or are you going to let his body rest in France? She said, knowing that I would struggle to find an answer. My little Frankie signed up to serve in the Great War, and I, as his mother, unknowingly also signed up to serve. My service to our country didn't include fancy salutes or holding rifles. The serving I did was different. My normal life was now one of honor, dignity, and sacrifice. The pastor at my local church shook my hand extra hard and comforted me with extra words of encouragement after each service. The local sheriff even came to my doorstep to let me know if I ever needed anything. He would send one of his boys. I was part of a community now of women who worried for their sons and husbands. While they were gone, we had to keep things moving because life in the States didn't stop, even if the bullets kept flying in Europe. And most important, I, like so many others, had to be brave knowing that my little soldier might never return home. I remember receiving the news. It was all an unfortunate accident. I've come to peace with everything. Nobody is to blame. My boy was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Men toying around with dud shells while waiting to reach the front lines. They say you never mess with duds, but everybody makes mistakes. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. I suppose wars should never happen either, but of course, they do. 12 years later, and I finally get word that I get to see where Frankie is buried. President Coolidge had signed the legislation, which was very kind of him. All transportation expenses were paid for by the government, including the train rides to the boat ride in New York. When I arrived at the docks, I was surrounded by other mothers who had lost their loved ones in France. When we introduced ourselves, we always mentioned the name of our boys. He would probably hate to know that I still call him Frankie. No matter how old he got, he was still my baby. All of these brave men were all just young boys fighting for their country, doing what they thought was right. Any parent can attest that they love nothing more than to brag about how proud they are of their child. I was proud of my Frankie because he wanted to help people. That's why he was picked to be in the ambulance company. My boy, Private Frank Cockrell. If it weren't for people like my Frankie, then injured soldiers wouldn't have had a chance to be rescued from the front lines. For the ambulance company, war was more than just a coordinated display of brutality. For the men who had to take care of the injured, war was a test of survival. Being aboard the SS America offered a glimpse into how my Frankie must have felt when he too sailed for France. I was stepping into his boots for the first time since he left. We both smelled the same salty air and felt the rocking sway of the boat's destined course as it crashed over each daunting wave. Just as Frankie met some of the men he would be spending fighting, whenever I edit that, spending with in France, I met the acquaintance of lovely women who were happy to find a friend to share their closure with, including Flora. I don't know. The French have been so kind to our boys. I've already made peace with all of this, and if I brought him back, it would bring back the emotions all over again, I responded to Flora. I get what you mean, darling. I want nothing more than to bring back the man I loved and to have him rest close to me. But the truth is, I've moved on. I've started talking to another gentleman, and things are getting serious. I know that Fletcher wouldn't want me to be so alone and miserable. If our government hadn't taken so long for us to visit the graves of our boys, then maybe I would have decided differently. But I think we ought to let our fighters continue to rest where they fought, Flora said as she looked off into the distance, clutching her cup of coffee, which was now bitter and cold. I know exactly how you feel, dear. After I lost my Frankie, I dealt with the loss of my husband, Davis. I was so lost. I was surprised I kept my head on straight. No matter what we do, we have to think about how we will feel. We can't let judgment from others taint our decisions. If we do, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives, I said to Flora as I reached my hand to put onto hers. Flora and I became close because not only had we both lost our husbands, but we also both lost children. Flora had given birth in 1917 to a lovely boy named Claren. Unfortunately, complications from birth brought about an early rest for her boy. Flora and I discovered this commonality early when we were acquainted on the steamer ship. Talking to Flora helped process the grief and confusion surrounding those moments of loss. A decade had passed since the news broke that I had lost my boy, but the feelings came back when I finally saw my boy's place of rest. All the other Gold Star mothers were scattered in the, I thought I remember how to say this, the Meuse Argonne American Cemetery. Some were sitting on the ground, having private words with their children. Others were placing photographs against the cross-shaped grave. I bent down on my knees and did my best to keep my composure. Frankie and I were finally in the same space. He was there, just a short distance below my feet. "Hey there, my little Frankie. I'm so glad to see you again," I said as I held a bouquet of red poppies to my chest. I did not see Frankie's face in the small cross which bore his name and rank. I did not see Frankie's face in the small American flag that waved in the wind behind the cross. My son was buried, and I couldn't give him one more hug or one more kiss. But I could still feel his presence, and I could still spend time with him. "You seem to be so comfortable here, Frankie," I said. And that was the truth. Frankie had already spent so much time resting in France. The French were very grateful for what the American soldiers had done, and this was their ultimate way of expressing their gratitude. "Your father would be so proud of you, Frankie. I know that you and him are both up there talking about the excitement of wartime. Your father was always bragging about your service. You were going to save lives, Frankie," I said before taking a breath and letting the breeze of the cool air pass. "This is where you will stay. I've made that decision for you, and that's because I'm your mother, and mothers know best. I knew letting you serve was the right choice. I knew taking this journey was the right choice. And now that I am here, I know that the French will take great care of you. The people will appreciate your sacrifice just like me. They will love you for what you did in your final moments of life, just like me. I love you, Frankie. I hope to see you soon," I said as I placed the bouquet onto the cross and kissed my son's name engraved in stone. All right. So that was a piece that I'm still kind of workshopping with Keith. We're going to have this piece is due February 1st at some point in the day. But yeah, I think that I initially scanned this woman's folder at the Elmwood Cemetery, and just the idea of, so this woman, Nellie Cockrell, I'll actually share this kind of document, this War Untold online story about her and her son Frank. So she experienced her son dying in war, and then at the same time, her husband, I mean, like a few months later, dies. And so for her to then, a decade later, the government is like, "Hey, do you want to go and see your son? Do you want to go see your son and where he's buried?" Had to have been a very daunting decision to make, but she did it and she went, and she was so comfortable because they had the option to say, "Okay, do you want your son to rest here or do you want to bring him back?" And I wanted to kind of look at that decision. Not only that decision, but I wanted to look at, her, I mean, a mother seeing her son's grave for the first time since hearing and about his death, and also the confusion around his death because it was an accident where his uh, other the other soldiers were playing with a fucking dud projectile. But it's, yeah, just so intensely grim, and I found that there was a lot of kind of fiction to fill in with those gaps on just, I guess, the human condition and how to deal with loss. Yeah, it's very unique. So yeah, thank y'all for letting me read that piece, but also I am the god of this open mic, and if you didn't like that piece, fuck off. But yeah, I'm gonna edit it some more, and then hopefully I will win buku amounts of money for doing so. Anyways, without further ado, last but not least, we will get to hear an excerpt from Emily Sipiora.
Thank you, Morgan. I appreciated your reading. It was very striking. I have a document I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat. So my name is Emily K. Sipiora. I'm a Mexican-American poet in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the creative director of the internet literature podcast Victim Radio. Today I'm reading an excerpt from my short story, Gunner. It will be included in my forthcoming book from New Ritual Press, Winter, available in fall 2026. I'm a poet at heart. I don't often write fiction, so I welcome your feedback. Towards the end of the night, Mona said that we were going to get Parker, that we'd really gun for him. Like Johnny Depp, she said, lifting up a bottle of beer with one hand and slamming the base of it into the other in mock violence. I told Mona that I wanted to change the subject, and we began to discuss what was happening in the news, which of course was bombing Iran. I barely recalled a half-hearted conversation between us about the internet around the time Jamal Khashoggi was killed. I remembered one thing about that. Someone had said that America only had symbolic heroes like SpongeBob, and therefore nothing could truly be done to retaliate. It reminded me of what Parker said, that I couldn't really hurt him. I wonder if Mona saw this as a symbolic opportunity for women despite our friendship. Like this was a chance to cancel someone that posted badly about women. That this was a W for women overall, regardless of what emotional violence followed. She didn't bring up Parker for the rest of the night, but told me that she would text me tomorrow. I was nearly good to drive close to 5 in the morning. I was nearly good to drive close to 5 in the morning, so she walked me to the closest Blue Line stop. I took it back to Rosemont. O'Hare Airport employees, dressed in airline apparel with suitcases, were scattered amongst the train cars. Kids in red polos with school logos quietly sat at the far end of the train car. I caught my reflection for a moment in the train window and noted that I looked mostly fine. I held no haunted gaze. And life would go on in America for me and for you and for Mona, and we'd be the epicenter of life on this side of the planet and the harbinger of violence on the other. And we do that in each other's lives too. On Saturday, I continued to bleed and I was incredibly hungover. Mona had texted me, and the message was so long that my iPhone SE didn't even display the whole message. I dismissed it, took a pill, and when that pill wore off, I took a second one. I woke up on Sunday to a direct message notification from a journalist on Twitter that said that my friend Mona gave me your contact information. Can we set up a time to talk? I don't know if it was because I was still sedated, if I was mad, or if I was afraid, but I read the message with all of its information that Parker was not who he said he was, that he was a 42-year-old lawyer that was inactive according to the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission. The message ended with a cloying, dull statement that I wasn't the only one. There are others that I'm in contact with, the message read. I looked at the message on my iPhone SE screen and comprehended what it said and what a reply would instigate. I imagined my future with that, all of the rest of my life. My jaw pressed up against the tops of my teeth as I reread the messages over and over. It made me want a cigarette for the first time in months. And then first I blocked the journalist, and right after I blocked Mona. I saw that my aunt had texted me asking about my date yesterday, and I ignored the message. I drove to the gas station and bought a pack of pads because I was still bleeding, and a pack of cigarettes because I was still bleeding. I smoked a few of them in front of my apartment and went back inside to write an email to my boss requesting to use more PTO to stay home tomorrow. I imagined his reply, "Thank you." I settled into my bed and took 2 of my pills and woke up on Monday morning. I settled into my bed and took 2 of my pills and woke up on Monday to a pounding at my door. And when I opened my door, I saw my aunt and a female police officer. I realized that I must have sedated myself late into the afternoon when I saw the sun setting behind them. I closed the door behind me and stepped outside, leaning against it, greeted my aunt by her name, and asked the police officer what she was doing, even though I already knew what this was about. The police officer asked if she could come inside, and I politely asked her if she had a warrant. And when she said, "I'm just checking on you," I told her that if she was just checking on me, that we could talk here outside. "Your aunt said that you had gone into the city to meet a man from the internet," the police officer explained, "that no one had heard from me since." "I've been busy. I haven't been checking my phone," I replied. "Are you going somewhere now? Do you have time to talk?" the police officer asked. I scoffed. "No, I'm not going anywhere. I took the day off." "Well, you're dressed nicely for a day at home," she replied, and I then realized I was still wearing the dress I had worn into the city. "That's not going to work on me." I rose my voice. I asked her to leave. She looked at my aunt for help, and they both asked me again if they could come inside to talk to make sure I was okay. I declined for the second time. The police officer gave me her business card and told me that I could call the mental health line at any time to be connected to a therapist. "I think you should leave. This is a misunderstanding," I replied, and the police officer returned to her car in my driveway but continued to eye my aunt and I. I spoke to my aunt and told her I was fine, but her expression communicated to me that she didn't believe me. I informed her that I did not appreciate the wellness check and that I'd call her later that week. She asked if she could bring me Culver's later that evening, and I said no thank you because I had to prepare food for my lunch at work tomorrow. My aunt clung to me in the conversation, trying her best not to let me escape back into my apartment, but I was eventually able to dismiss her, and I watched her get into her car to leave. I went back into my apartment and sat down for a few moments, my legs jittery and lower back screaming. When I looked out my window again, both my aunt and the police officer were gone. I arrived earlier than usual to work on Tuesday. It was the part of the year where the fun, warm weather became thick, gross, and humid. I felt it as soon as I exited my car. I saw a woman in a hijab holding a wrapped up baby and begging for money outside of the Rockford Public Library. I wondered I wondered how she would deal with the heat later. There was a gazebo by the river she could sit in, but what about her kid? I dismissed my thoughts. She saw me walk past her and said, "Ma'am," but I ignored her and entered the office. I wanted to settle in before my coworkers arrived. When I logged onto my computer, I saw the expected thank you email from my boss for my PTO request on Sunday. I also saw an external event on my Outlook calendar and realized that I was to attend the groundbreaking of a new harm reduction clinic with him later that morning. I thanked God for the pad I remembered to bring. I went on my iPhone SE for around an hour before I heard other people coming in. With a soberish head, I thought about my post-rape actionables. I checked Amazon to see how fast I could get an STI test. I pressed the button. It'd be at my apartment tomorrow. Then I thought of the inherent weakness of the begging woman outside the library and also ordered a pack of pregnancy tests. That wouldn't come until later that week, but I wanted them now. I considered canceling my Amazon orders, admitting defeat, and driving to the closest Planned Parenthood in Oak Park, but the idea of going anywhere remotely near the city disgusted me. My thoughts were interrupted by my boss, who walked into my office without any announcement. I jumped and put my iPhone SE face down on my desk. He spoke to me in his soft private school voice. "Are you okay?" he asked, and I nodded. He said he didn't mean to scare me, and that he saw my car out front and wanted to see if I was feeling better. I told him that I was tired but fine. Today he had the shitty gray suit that he always saved for the mayor and the city administrator. He did choose the only one of his ties that I liked. It was a cornflower blue that synced with his A10s. I realized that we must be getting photographed at the event today. I wore a loose pair of dress pants with an oversized button-up, and part of me wished I had worn one of my dresses, but I saw the bathroom from Friday in my head. I told myself that I was doing good. I was making the right choices. I went to work and I would get the job done. Life relentlessly moved on. My boss inquired if I'd still make the opening today. I confirmed yes. Do you still have the index cards I prepared for you? I asked. My boss said yes, that he did, and thanked me again for preparing them. I nodded. He turned to leave, but thought at the last moment to ask if I had caught a cold in the city. I told him that it was a woman thing, and then he said, oh, and fucked off back to his office. The morning passed with no work completed. I looked at the Rock River outside my office window. I wonder if Parker skulked around his superior city, hair dry and pretty and the amygdala underneath it afraid of me. Rape. As if I was the raped. A cunty hiss escaped the slant of my mouth, and my coworker across from me asked me what was so funny, and I said nothing. Did you see? She asked me. What? I was out yesterday. I informed her, even though she already knew because she had our entire office to herself. And as I finished my sentence, a flash of terror arose that fully woke me up. I had told her about my date with Parker the previous week. We had cyberstalked him pretty hardcore on the work computers, which were privy to the Freedom of Information Act. Had my coworker looked at Parker's account? Did the journalist FOIA rape me? Did someone post something? Did my family know? I looked at my coworker, the commuter from Barrington that didn't care what mileage she dealt to her parents' car. She couldn't possibly know. There was no way. Did you see what happened in Iran? My coworker finally asked, and the fear was replaced by low-grade buzzing relief. I told her that yes, of course, I had seen what happened in Iran, but I had pressing public health matters to attend to. And then she pulled out her phone to scroll for hours. My computer trilled, and I saw that my boss had invited me to an event titled Travel that started in 15 minutes. Rain began to pour against my office window, and I realized the day wasn't going to stop escalating. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth a few times like I had seen in an Instagram reel, and felt a bit of adrenaline subside. My boss knocked on our office door this time, something he rarely did, and I was livid that he ascertained that something was wrong. I looked up at him and collected my things. His understated entry-level Ford Explorer was quiet. When we pulled up to the project site, the press was already there. I saw the city administrator's obnoxious red Jaguar out of place in the grass. I fantasized about keying that car every time I saw it parked outside of our office. I envisioned using all of the strength I had left to push the city administrator's car into the Rock River. I envisioned purchasing a gun in the shitty area we placed the clinic for drug addicts in. In my head, I was raising it against Parker's face and marring him. I visualized destroying the Jaguar and Parker at the same time, bombing them, dropping nukes on the both of them, completely expelling them from this planet for good. The rain had slowed to an irritating, barely perceivable inkling at the project site. Carrying a display to the staging area, I noticed that it talked about HIV, and it reminded me of my tests on the way, so I didn't look at the display again, even when I put it up on its stand. Northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin news vans were centered around a pile of dirt that held an array of shovels. The mayor, nice suit, and the city administrator, polo, khakis, walkie-talkie, were already close to the pile, speaking to people I recognized as local news and journalists. When we approached them, the mayor excused himself to greet my boss. We really needed this, the mayor said dryly, gesturing broadly to either the project site or the light rain. Right, you think the rainy season would be over this time of year, my boss replied, offering his hand to the leader of the free Rockford world. But it's been raining for you for such a long time, Gunner. The mayor took his hand and held it for a moment. Tell me, are our lawyers worth their retainer? I watched my boss, Gunner, short circuit for a moment as the mayor held his hand and did not let go. The electricity around Gunner was self-directed, not magnanimous like Parker's. It sparked against him and unsettled him, and I could see the pain quickly populate onto his face. When Gunner was released, he quickly adjusted his goodwill tie and informed the mayor that he felt there was still nothing to worry about and inquired if any members of the press had raised the lawsuit in conversation. The mayor responded that the press knew better, but that Gunner shouldn't go on Facebook, shouldn't read any comments. I recalled Parker's phrase, psycho cafe, and wondered if Gunner would go home to his very private Facebook account to read all of the terrible things people were saying about the City of Rockford Health and Human Services Department. That Gunner was too much of a white male, that he had too much power already, and the lawsuit proved his incompetence. I knew for a fact that Gunner had nothing to do with the needles. I went to all the meetings. I knew that the city contracted with the local college's APRN program and that plausibly they could be thrown under the bus, but instead Gunner was the easier scapegoat. I knew that breaking ground on the harm reduction clinic was a shiny object to distract the public. Smoke and mirrors came to mind. Some of the more liberal community stakeholders were certain to praise the clinic. I thought of the woman in front of the library accidentally stepping on a needle by the river, unknowingly bringing our sickness into her home. The MAGA people were certain to comment on any post that the addict should simply be thrown into jail, and they would fight forever in mid-tier city Facebook comments. The phrases harm reduction and psycho cafe rattled around in my head because I felt that no matter what happened, we were all bound to eventually hurt each other. The mayor, the city administrator, and Gunner approached the press at the dirt pile. Gunner looked to me for some reason, perhaps to see how I was feeling, or maybe I imagined that, but he looked at me and then looked away. The mayor smiled at the press like J.B. Pritzker did and talked about the vulnerable community in the area, which was trailer parks and gas stations in the Chicago Rockford International Airport. The city administrator spoke next about jobs, about how many jobs the clinic would bring, about how we'd connect the drug addicts to jobs. And essentially, once everyone had a job, maybe there wouldn't be any addiction and loss and pain anymore. Gunner got up to speak last. He held the index cards I prepared for him that addressed the significance of the project. The light of the news cameras were not kind to his pallid skin. Gunner stood out against the mayor and city administrator in a bad way. I had a long-running theory that the mayor got Botox. He usually looked healthy and confident. He had the Macy's Polo city administrator in tow to separate him from the public if they got too close. Gunner never resembled either of them. He moved through the city in his thrift store suits. Once during a presentation, I had noticed that his button-up shirt extended longer than his cuffs. I don't think Gunner cared about stuff like that, but I thought that he should. The mayor wore suits. He took care of his skin. He and the city administrator probably did CrossFit together or something, talking about all of the great things we were going to do, compiling lists of people to blame when something went wrong. Gunner, the brain drain, the county. I was so caught up in my head that I didn't even realize Gunner had started to talk. When we talk about public health, we're really discussing the heartbeat of our community, Gunner orated. He paused to try to stand a little taller. Whenever I prepared something for Gunner to say, I liked that he read straight from my script. I chose words that I knew he knew, but he would never actually use them. I tried to highlight his intelligence because I had seen him get treated like shit so many times. I wanted Gunner to stand taller. I wanted him to keep talking, to prove to everyone there that he called the shots in the Rockford Health arena. Gunner's pause had continued too long. I looked to him and brightened my eyes towards him, and he looked at me. I thought at him, be Rumsfeld, be Cheney. I smiled at Gunner how I imagined a young Hillary smile to Bill, and Gunner saw me. Providing harm reduction services to the people of Rockford is critical in reducing drug-related fatalities and preventable diseases, he finally continued. Gunner continued to read from my index cards until he had shuffled through all of them. Again, he paused, and I looked at him again and mouthed the words, thank you, and Gunner quickly thanked everyone for listening. He joined the mayor and city administrator for photos in the dirt. They each held a shovel, and then they drove them into the ground. Again, I noted Gunner's minuteness next to the other two men. I imagined him being cropped out of the press photos. I felt angry for him. I watched all the photography and interviewing from a safe distance. A while back, when I had first started working for Gunner, he asked me if I was comfortable representing the department publicly. I had declined and told him that I'd rather be operational, working invisibly in the machine. He respected that choice. I noticed the press packing up on their way to their next solution or the closest tragedy. When everything was done, Gunner approached me and I let him. He told me good job, and I thought about what the city administrator said, that when everyone had a job, there wouldn't be any more pain, and I realized that I had a meaningful job in front of me all along. I quickly reached out to touch his shoulder. I held the edge of it in the palm of my hand, and I felt a burst of heat that I rolled my eyes at before when I had first noticed it way back when in my interview, but I wasn't rolling my eyes at it now. Gunner's own A10s lit up with surprise. It was all you, I told him, removing my hand. I just gave you the notes. He gave me a polite smile and said, sure, and we walked back to his Ford Explorer. I noticed that the city administrator and the mayor had already left, the Jaguar nowhere to be seen. The press was still piling their equipment into their vans. I stepped up into the Ford Explorer and he started the car. Gunner, considerate as always, asked me if I wanted the AC turned on and I declined. The rain cooled things down a bit, he noted. He reached he reached towards the display in the vehicle, presumably to play music, and I decided to intercede. You think Tom talks to J.B. Pritzker like that? Before the ceremony, I asked him. You mean the mayor? Gunner's slight frown was visible on the side of his lips that I could see, but he kept his eyes on the road. The mayor, sorry, I obliged to his insistence upon professionalism. He switched on his turn signal and moved into the left turn lane. The light wasn't lit. He looked away from the road for a moment to look at me, and I noticed that if I reached out my hand, I would be close enough to touch him again. I could see the lines around his mouth, from frowning, from disappointment, maybe from smoking. Gunner replied thoughtfully, to answer your question, probably not, but that's just part of this job. I asked him if he thought J.B. Pritzker talked to the mayor like that. Gunner said no. Every time he's been around Pritzker, he thought he was a stand-up guy, treated everyone with respect, and remembered everyone's names. He's been very gracious to us, he added. The mayor said that if Pritzker runs in 2028, we're going to have to build a relationship with the successor from basically zero. I'm not really talking about J.B. Pritzker, I admitted, and Gunner asked me what I was talking about, and I asked him if he was ever bothered by how the mayor treated him. What do you mean? Gunner asked, turning onto the arterial that carry us back downtown. I debated what to do. It was my turn in the conversation. I wasn't sure how to approach him about the mayor's disrespect of him, if I should come off girlish or serious. I had never tried the thing with my voice with Gunner, but I had touched him at the project site and also done the thing with my eyes. I don't think he was oblivious to the fact that I was his younger female subordinate and that I had done that. It would be a calculated risk to code switch, to move from his liaison to something else, but he had noticed something was up since the beginning of the day when he came into my office. Do you ever think he's mean to you? I asked. Mean? We're at work, Gunner responded, scoffing a bit, which surprised me. Like he undermines you. The sentence spilled out of my mouth defensively, diminutively. I relaxed my eyelids to look under them at him when undermine dropped. The windshield wipers squeaked against the car, searching for what little condensation was left as he considered his response. He's just like that. That's how he is. Gunner defended the mayor. I don't see him talking to the city administrator like that, I clipped back. Men, well, guys are different with each other. It's kind of like when I was on the football team, he replied. The football team? I was incredulous. Gunner parked his car in our lot across from the library. The river stewed in the background. I looked at him again and let him see that I was looking at him. Football player Gunner, were you also the homecoming king? I probed, playful, wondering if he could hear that in my voice. He smiled lightly. He did hear it. He answered, "No, I didn't go. I went to a party instead." When he turned off his car, I asked him why he characterized the mayor and city administrator as similar to his football team. Gunnar asked me if I had heard of hazing. I told him that yes, I had heard of hazing, but I felt that it wasn't acceptable at work. Proving to Gunnar that he was an emasculated victim was the job in front of me now. But hazing is illegal, I replied, and I made myself sound concerned. And we're already being told that we broke the law. Two entirely different things, he said as we exited the car. And that's the excerpt of my piece.
Damn, I am so interested to hear more. I think so. If you want, I don't know if you wanted like intense feedback or anything,
Sure.
but yeah, it is. So I worked for the city of Memphis. I actually worked for the libraries for, oh, I think it was only 2 years. It was like my first real job outside of college. I really appreciated the like machismo politics that you employed between the mayor, the city administrator, and Gunner because it's so true. It's very real. I had a meeting where I presented an idea that my boss had told me. He was like, "Yeah, present this idea. It should go over really well." And I brought this up to, she was the CEO of this one nonprofit, and she was like really buddy buddy with the city of Memphis. And I brought this idea up to her, thinking like, this is going to be a nice formal meeting conversation. And just she was like, "Nope, I don't think we should do it. Bad idea." And I'm like, "Oh fuck. Oh, I'm so sorry." And like total awkwardness in the room where like people wanted to defend me, but this person had this kind of like power, and it is so evidently obvious in local politics where there is this kind of like it's not real power, but it is real power. And of course, in situations where it's like breaking ground on these on like little tiny projects like this harm reduction center, which again I liked how relevant the piece was, and of course these mentions of like the iPhone and meme culture earlier on. It doesn't take away from the piece at all. It kept me engaged. I'm not gonna lie. When you first said, "Oh, I'm gonna read 8 pages," I'm like, "Okay, I gotta lock in and focus." I
Well,
I was focused. It read simply, but not too simple, and it was engaging without there being too much to like mentally have to like think about.
would you believe me if I shared that this is a story about like power and masculinity? That's what
Absolutely.
I intended to do when I set out to write the story. It's about persecution. It's set against like the backdrop of a lawsuit against the city for improperly disposing needles. And
Mm,
of course, there's like the bad date that the narrator has where she sees one type of masculinity, and then she sees like the really quiet, suffering, martyr masculinity or whatever.
yeah,
That's where I was going with it. It's about masculinity and two relationships, and Chicago and Rockford also, like small town versus or less nice city versus nicer city.
yes, absolutely. And I love that yeah, because there was, I guess, with the narrator, with the person who was working with Gunner, there was a lot of like paranoia almost with kind of, am I perceiving this masculinity correctly, into kind of, and as like an antagonist to the masculinity, there's this emphasis on like, my head hurts, I'm wearing this nice dress, and then the pads and the bleeding, which I thought was a very strategic way to kind of set that apart from the other male characters. Um, but yeah, there is such a workplace masculinity and in general masculinity as it finds itself in day to day happenings is just something that can easily be put into like these. I need to be careful on how I say this, but there are some crazy feminist takes on masculinity that just make me roll my eyes because I just kind of don't relate to it. But this piece, I related to it because not only because that I experience it and see it, but it's believable. And it's believable in a way where the characters are presented in a very realistic way. Yes, of course, there is kind of, the fantasy fiction of it, but it is approaching masculinity in a way that is not uh it's so that's it's gonna be funny coming from my mouth, but it wasn't condescending to the reader as if the reader was a man. Because of course I know that you were probably thinking about that, like how do I critique masculinity without alienating or without being condescending, or whatever. But again, you as the author, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. But no,
Yeah, how would you feel if I told you that my goal with this piece is that it's an anti-rape piece of fiction where she sees two elements of masculinity and she rejects like the cancel culture thing and she aims to pursue like the power of masculinity for herself, like through the position she has at the health department. Does that make sense? Was that clear at all? I will share, when I lived in Rockford, I went to a writing workshop and it was with a lot of retirees and some young people. And they always told me that I'm way too subtle. Like I don't, even if I think I'm implying something, I'm not actually implying it. Like I need to spell it out. Does that sound accurate to you?
no, I definitely think that in the beginning, I think that I would need to have read before to more understand like the cancellation of this Parker person. But the way that you handled it, it was definitely clear that this person is anti-cancel culture and that there is, I mean, maybe if I'm gonna go look at it closer, the paragraph where it's the funny continuation of, oh, let's change the subject, let's talk about the bombing in Iran, which is very funny to go from a issue that is so interpersonal to this like grand global topic of conversation that
Yeah,
cannot be solved in a
yeah,
conversation.
the story takes place over like 4 days, like when Iran was bombed, like over the summer. I mean,
Mm.
obviously she's not there for the whole 4 days, but that's like the idea that it like happens in this small window of like extreme geopolitical violence.
Emily, can I interject something real quickly
Sure.
about the question you asked?
Sure.
Um, the prior question you just asked about, was it clear? And to me, it seemed very clear that you were doing something like that. It seemed very self-evident that, we had Parker on the one hand and whatever he had done, and we had kind of a very different relationship with Gunner, where you're more nurturing and where you're trying to, you know, have cultivate some kind of relationship with him, and that the narrator, excuse me, not you, but the narrator was looking for kind of a third way, let's say, between the usual dichotomies of masculinity, right? And kind of the Jungian way or sense that, men have to kind of assimilate some, some kind of feminine aspect of themselves, and women have to assimilate a kind of masculine shadow. But the speaker is searching for a way to do this, which doesn't get hung up on the dichotomies represented by cancel culture on the one hand, or kind of the hazing one-upsmanship that you see in a lot of masculine things. So that those things seem pretty evident from the excerpt.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I agree with Mark as well. I can't really think of anything else. I mean, other than, and I know that having to refer to Gunner so many times versus just using the pronoun him, and that's just
Yeah, the thing, yeah,
that's just
let me interject there. So the entire, so this is about 20 pages, and I want to submit it places, so it needs to be pared down. I need to cut out some of the internet stuff and make it more broad and general or whatever. But the title is supposed to imply that she's going to go after this guy in the beginning, this guy that did this thing to her. And then when she goes to the needle exchange and the mayor's mocking her boss, we learn that the title actually refers to like her boss. So my intention as a writer, why is this guy named Gunner? What is he going to do? What is she going to make him do? That was kind of my line of thought with the title. Did you pick up on that at all? And if I'm derailing or taking too much time up, let me know.
yeah, no, you're not derailing at all. I think these are very important questions. And for anybody else in this reading, if you ever have like questions about your own work, please ask them. That is what the space is for. Um, but I think that when I first figured out, oh, Gunner is the name of her boss, I definitely felt like, okay, now this piece is taking on it is less focused on the main character, the narrator, and her relationship to this cancellation thing, but it is more kind of focused on her relationship with her boss, and that whenever these moments come up where it is her and her boss having these conversations, talking about work, to keenly pay more attention. And that's exactly what I did towards the end of the piece. I paid more attention to like when they're in the car and she is just like reading this guy's expressions from his frown on his face when he's driving to noticing that he is looking straight ahead. He is not, like this man is so professional that even when it comes to like maybe kind of talking about other men that are in positions of power above him, he still has this like rigid like, oh nope, that's just what they do. This is how men act. This is the city at work. And you're kind of like, man, like there are men like that. And she is just having to witness this, and she is this kind of flexible character where she has a very dynamic personality. And so you get to, as the reader, make your own assumptions about like, how are we to assess Gunner? Is he, a product of his environment? How is this relationship between Gunner and the narrator? Is the narrator being, is there like a sense of like being taken advantage of? Do we see the narrator having any effect on Gunner? Is she getting to him? Is she reaching him in like a really human way that, working for the city and having these employees, it's difficult to really make friends outside of work, especially because it's, such a very competitive environment that you don't know if being vulnerable will bite you in the ass.
Yeah, do you get the impression that she's cajoling him at all?
Oh yeah,
That she,
oh yeah.
what do you make of that? What do you think the direction of that is?
I think it's, trying to look at this kind of masculine facade, this kind of stone statue kind of person. And for me, when I used to work in a kitchen and whenever I had a chef that was just like bare bones, this is how I do it, call out, reply back, et cetera, the first thing I always thought was, I need to make a joke to try and make this guy laugh. And that will kind of pair me with him on a human level. And so in this story, I think that it's not to yeah, it's a way to reach him and to kind of understand her partner better and to just get more of an understanding of Gunner's inner mind without, being this like therapist or without psychoanalyze without using any intensive psychoanalogy. And I guess to compare that to not being canceled, which cancellation is all about, oh, let's find this person, let's over like dog pile mob mentality, just decimate this person with what we assume to be their intentions, and with gossip, narrative driven, smear campaigns, what have you, even if they're true, but it always tends to kind of snowball into something bigger and something more different than reality. And to say no to that, even when it's something that hits close to home and is personal, and which can bring about these, feelings of revenge, or uh, like, I don't know, mob mentality, etc. But this is more of like a tailored, almost like, some kind of cheesy, but with like American Psycho, where there has to be something else behind the facade. There's got to be something more human, something that is beyond the masculine and the feminine, and something that is more corporeal, than just this, everyday kind of job expectation personality that is kind of this performance. Um, yeah,
Great. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you for sharing. No, this is a great project, and it's exciting that New Ritual is going to pick this up. I was curious. I remember seeing a tweet that there were new things were coming about, and this is exciting. Publications of indie lit writers is always something to celebrate, and the fact that this is, something that is clearly like from your real lived experience, I think is going to add a lot of great depth to the work. And for you to share that in this space, thank you for kind of letting us be like a test audience of sorts. It's always very nerve wracking to do that. So yeah, you fucking did it. Congratulations, and
Thank
I
you.
wish you luck, and sell all the fucking copies, and hopefully you get to go to LA and do some readings and shit. Who knows?
Yeah, well, it's 30 pages of poetry and then like one or two short stories, so it's not a full novel, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much. I think that was the perfect piece to end the night. We've gone through a lot of crazy poetry tonight, a lot of very absurd, descriptive, corporeal. That is a good word, Biz. I like using that word, corporeal. A lot of historical and traditional. I think I'm just naming adjectives now, but damn, today was a good reading. We had some new folks, some familiar faces, and everyone did very well. Everybody was very nice and engaging. I got rid of all of the trolls with their jerking off videos, so I will not have to edit this video when I upload it to YouTube. So that's always a victory. That's always a W in my book. But yeah, once again, my name is Morgenrede. This has been Media Agnostic Doom Journaling, an open mic that is every Friday at 7:30 Central, only on Zoom. And yeah, that's it.